Good morning and welcome to a short talk from Gisborough Christian Fellowship. In our modern day society we often hear the words supply and demand. It's usually associated with driving the cost of an item or service up. Building costs have gone up ridiculously and fuel and electricity are on the way up as well. The water bill I got the other day was quite a shock to my system. Being a Yorkshireman, these big increases do me no good at all really. But God, my God, because I'm a Christian, looks at things in a completely different way to human things. You see, he isn't bothered about making profits. He doesn't have shareholders to keep sweet. He's about making a difference in people's lives. That's you and I. He makes a difference, and that's what he wants to do. That gives him pleasure. You see, the people who believe in him, he wants to improve their lives. You see, God works on a complete different principle, not supply and demand. He works on the principle of need and supply. You see, God sees our needs in everything we do. He has a handle on us all. He's not somebody who just comes and wanders in occasionally, on a Monday morning to check how progress is going on. He's there all the time for us. So he knows what's going on in our lives. He knows our needs. But quite often he'll wait for us to ask for his help. You see, he waits until we've exhausted all our human resources. And when you get to that point, you've only got one person to rely on, that's God. So that's what he waits for, strangely enough. And where he thinks he dives in, but no, he asks, we have to ask him sometimes. You see, at that point, when we've exhausted all our resources, at that point we're reliant upon him. But he has an infinite resource. You see, we ask for his assistance at that point, and he supplies. It's then a time, sometimes, of waiting. See, but during that time, we should never doubt God has our best interest at heart, and he will supply. But once that tap is opened, his assistance will be supplied until such times as we can manage quite nicely by ourselves. He still keeps an eye on us. See, once we're back down to that ground level, when we're back to normality, we then wander away by ourselves, don't rely on him anymore, but he still keeps an eye on us. You see, does he walk away at that point? No, he doesn't. You see, God will walk with us because he's our helper. And, don't forget this, he's our friend. All this came about when I was looking through the Bible at a brilliant chapter in 2 Kings. It's one of the Old Testament books. And this one is in chapter 4, and it centres around God's provision. There was a prophet called Elisha. He was a very powerful prophet. But you see, he was only powerful because God had given him the power. Man can't do it by themselves. Only when God's power comes into alignment, that is when great things happen. But Elisha knew God, and he believed in God, and because of that, the power of God was manifested itself through Elisha. But there was a second person in this, and that was an old, well, it doesn't say old actually, it just says the humbleness of a widow, a recent widow. She was in desperate need. I mean, it goes like this. It was written in the second Old Testament book of Kings. There's 2 of those, and it's chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. I'm just going to read the section for you, then I'll interject a little bit as I'm going on. The wife of a man from the company of prophets, so he was a group of prophets, was this guy, cried out to Elisha. Elisha was a powerful man at that time. Your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that he loved and followed the Lord, but now his creditors is coming to take my boys as his slaves. See, we all need a bob or two sometimes from banks, and in those days you borrowed from people that you knew, but they always wanted the money back, like all systems want the money back. So the poor widow was now without a husband and no income. So she, or her husband, had borrowed money at some point and she had no way of paying it back. And this was through no fault of her own. We don't know why the other friends, the other prophets as it says, didn't help her financially. Possibly they were in the same boat, they were as poor as what she was. We'll never know that. But the widow knew there was only one person she could rely on, and that person was God. So where did she go? She went and spoke to God's servant, which was Elisha. And the passage goes on. Elisha asked, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" And she said, "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." She was really down. Elisha said, "Go and ask all your neighbours for empty jars." These were little glass jars like we buy out at Sainsbury's or other stores. These were probably amphoras, like quite big jars specially designed to hold olive oil. "But don't ask for just a few," he said. "Ask for a lot. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons and start pouring the olive oil into the jars." So she had only a small container of olive oil, but she had belief that this was going to become something miraculous. And miraculous it was. So she started to pour this small amount into these big containers. It says, "Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." See, God had told Elisha how he should handle this situation. God's words were in Elisha's mouth. She left Elisha, and once in her home she shut the door behind her and her sons, as she'd been told. The sons brought the jars to her, and she poured olive oil into them. When all the jars were full, and there'd be quite a few at this point because she'd been round all her friends, when all the jars were full, she said to her sons, "Pass me the other one, pass the other one." But the son replied, "No jars left." At that point, this small container of oil that she'd started out with stopped overflowing. At that point, she went back to Elisha. She didn't just presume that oil was for her. She went back to Elisha to ask him what God had said she should do next. She didn't presume that it was her oil. She didn't presume anything. This is where humbleness takes over. And she went back to God and said, "God, what do you want me to do with this now? Do you want me to take it to the temple? Do you want me to?" But no, there was a different thing. You see, that's a fantastic story. You see, we call it a story, but I believe it's actually an account of what happened. You see, what happened then is she went and told Elisha, the man of God, what had happened and what she asked him what she should do next. And he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your son can live on what's left." It's not that supply and demand, it's the need and supply. See, fantastic story, or fantastic account. God only asks a few things that we believe in him, and we speak to him when we're in need, and we speak to him in times of joy. You know, when something great happens in our life, and I bet you can imagine the widow here, All her worries and her concerns had been forgotten. Her sons were now going to be hers and not a slave to someone else, as happened in those days. All her problems had been solved by God, simply by believing in him and asking for his help. You see, God can help us all if we believe in him. It's food for thought, isn't it? God is a great God who loves you, and he loves me. Amen. Have a great day. God bless you now.